and Relem 80K. It shows that he's willing to pay staff members, which are willing to accept those payments, and that he's confident enough to do this on live stream.
Okay. I think we're good. Let's get back to this, and let's wrap it up, and then I'll just gamble some more because I'm a degenerate.
Getting that third win.
And Joe, I got you on your 50 still on a trip. Remy, I'll take care of you too, bro. I'm on a trip, man. I got you. Pepega Fish, are you kidding me, bro? Realm, is that you on 2 staff accounts, bro? Pepega Fish comes in, I give him 50K, he leaves. You couldn't even stay for fucking 5 more minutes?
Oh, he said no one's ever sent him anything before.
Aw, no shot. No one has ever sent me anything before. That is the sweetest, most sad thing ever, isn't it?
Yeah, that is sweet and sad.
That's really sweet and sad. Hopefully he's not like a hustler, because I'm going to send him some more. Yo, take 30,000 altogether.
Dub.
I sent you two 15,000s, baby. That's 30 G's, Relem. Do whatever you want with that. You know what I'm saying? If you want to walk into your the office and tell your boss to suck your, you know what I mean, fuck off, this is the time. Just kidding. Don't do that. Don't do that.
I would expect Twitch to have some policy on their staff members accepting money from partnered streamers, especially ones that had to leave the country because the game they play would be illegal in the US, where Twitch is based. I don't blame Train for this. I would take the opportunity to pay off Twitch staff too if it secured my $12 million a year sponsorship. I do wonder how many more Twitch staff members consider themselves indebted to him though. Another individual jumped in to give their 2 cents on the ethics of the case. Speaking as a former Twitch staff member, not only is this absolutely disgusting, but it is 100% in violation of Amazon business conduct and ethics policy. Not Train's fault, it's not his job to police the ethics of Twitch, but absolutely the employees for asking/accepting payment. Train didn't do much to dispute the implication, other than calling it a mischaracterization, and he offered to pay any Twitch staff who could get fired due to his actions. With all this mounting pressure and controversy, the very same day, Twitch made an announcement. Gambling content on Twitch has been a big topic of discussion in the community, and something we've been actively reviewing since our last policy update in this area. Today, we want to update you on our plans. While we prohibit sharing links or referral codes to all sites that include slots, roulette, or dice games, we've seen some people circumvent those rules and expose our community to potential harm. So, we'll be making a policy update on October 18th to prohibit streaming of gambling sites that include slots, roulette, or dice games that aren't licensed either in the US or other jurisdictions that provide sufficient consumer protection. These sites will include stake.com, rollbit.com, duelbits.com, and roobets.com. However, we may identify others as we move forward. We will continue to allow websites that focus on sports betting, fantasy sports, and poker.
Well, well, well. It's been a long road, gentlemen, but I think we're finally at the destination. Twitch has banned gambling.
This event demonstrates that there are certainly streamers capable of pulling the strings of Twitch policy, and unfortunately for Train, he is not one of them. Unsurprisingly, Train wasn't too psyched to hear the news, and he certainly had a wealth of comments to make on the matter. He posted the following tweets. To be clear, the people scapegoating slots, BJ, and roulette, and not blaming the individual are the real problem. On top of that, Slicker was a sports betting addict, the one type of gambling that is normalized and that I don't hear a single one of you clout goblin fucks talking about. With that said, the streamers and viewers who sell a false reality should be banned. People who gatekeep giveaways through codes that require you to gamble should be banned. People who hide all losses and only show wins should be banned. Things like this are predatory. The inconsistency to not ban sports betting is corruption, considering the fact you have your hands in the $13 billion NFL deal cookie jar, and the fact you virtue signaling streamers who act like you care about gambling are silent, when it's 100 times the market and just as corrupt. Fellow streamer Greek God X responded to this tweet, "Worst part is sports betting is way worse," to which Trainwrecks continued, "Where are their arguments now? They scream so loudly about. If you can get paid billions of dollars for FanDuel and DraftKings sponsors, where are they making the money back? Their silence is their answer. Fucking hypocrites." My point to all of this isn't that sports betting should be banned. None of it should be. I enjoy all sides of gambling. The point is that the individuals should be banned that are doing predatory and non-transparent shit. But if you're going to virtue signal about slots, blackjack, and roulette, you better be damn consistent, or even more so for sports betting.
Either you ban gambling all over, or you create a more complex solution to what is allowed and what is not. But to ban pieces and parts of it that fit into people's agendas that aren't thinking clearly or objectively and are basing their agenda off of emotions, That's, to me, it's just, that's what fucks you over later on.
He does have a point that if Twitch were truly being consistent with their policy, they would ban all gambling, not just the forms associated with the online crypto casinos who aren't licensed in the US. No doubt, they're shadier than the companies who are permitted to do business in the States. But the fundamental problem Twitch is claiming to tackle with their decision is gambling addiction in general. But when Twitch's parent company, Amazon, has a multi-year partnership with DraftKings, one of the leading sports betting sites, it's not hard to see why Twitch would hesitate to unleash the ban hammer across the board. They're fine with banning the ones they're getting less of a cut from. As Bill Hicks said, the legal and good addictions seem to always be the conveniently taxed ones. Train continued his Twitter rant with a point of discussion he frequently brings up for years at this point, which is that people are just out to get him, and will use anything he does against him for that purpose. You want to see how corrupt these motherfuckers are? I'll start doing full-time sports betting streams, and you'll see their silence now turn into full-fledged bad faith activism. This has never had anything to do with gambling, and their inconsistency shows that. That wasn't the end of Train's beef with the Twitch community, though. During the same span of time, even more serious allegations were thrown around. In response to the Slicker drama, Asmongold tweeted this: "How the fuck is Slicker not banned on Twitch? Guy literally uses the platform to defraud dozens of people, streams and viewers alike, and admits it. Gideon is still sitting a perma, while Slicker gets to go live and laugh about actual crime. It's an absolute disgrace at Twitch." Train responded, "Because your pals decided it was in their best interest to use and platform the very person that scammed everyone for his horse racing and tennis bets to somehow twist it and wage their war against me. And we both know deep down why the insecure little man is doing this." Mizkif joined in and replied to Train, stating, "If we're going to deplatform people for scamming others, shouldn't we have banned you for Joltcoin a few years back?" It's not exactly clear what Mizkif was talking about with Joltcoin, other than it sounding like a crypto pump and dump scam, which are all too common for celebrities to promote nowadays. The one other piece of info confirming Train might have scammed people comes from streamer Forsen.
All right, what are they referring
Make shit
to
up
here?
though,
Let me
but
break it down.
the Joltcoin thing was
There's
real.
a good friend of Mizkif, a guy that Mizkif lives with,
That was like
called Crazy
2015 or what?
right?
But Train fired back with much crazier allegations that no one could have seen coming. "Are you going to send Maya and Mitch to railroad and blackmail me like you did those girls to cover up all those sexual assaults? You fucking scumbag piece of shit. You want to come at me and make shit up? And you better be sure you don't live in a glass house, you insecure pussy." He further elaborated, "The people involved know the truth. But for those of you that are farming drama and coming to split conclusions, let me be even more clear. Mizkif didn't assault the women. He orchestrated the cover-ups for his friends. Exactly how my tweet reads." What he was referring to were allegations made against streamer Crazy Slick, who Mizkif was living with, by Adriana Lee all the way back in 2021. Train claimed that in response, Mizkif had sent his friends Maya and Mitch Jones to suppress the allegations by trying to convince Adriana to make the situation look less bad than it really was and her twit longer. Whatever the case may be, it is true that Crazy Slick never ended up being held accountable, and that meant he would go on to supposedly sexually harass other girls.
I don't think there's a single person that we used to hang out with that doesn't hang out with Slick anymore because of what happened. I actually think there's literally none. Because the reality is, worst comes to worst of it, it's fucking like sexual harassment, right? I mean, like, no one, of what you can deem of it, it's sexual harassment, whatever. At a low scale, it's not really a big deal. I don't think people really gave a shit and really cared. I'm gonna turn this off if you're gonna.
This clip was a bombshell, but not everyone reacted the same way. Some people criticized Train for only bringing this information to light now, when it was opportunistic for him when he had known about it for a year. So, in other words, @Trainwrecks TV has information about SA, but only decides to bring it up when it could help him get a ratio on BS Twitch drama. What a horrible act. Meanwhile, others praised him for speaking up when no one else would, no matter the timing, including Crazy Slick's supposed victims, like Adriana herself, who said, "This isn't eye-opening for a lot of people in the scene. Do not come for @Trainwrecks TV for knowing the whole story and not saying anything when a lot of people knew. He was the one who gave me this opportunity to speak." Other female streamers came to his defense as well. "Nah, I don't stand for @Trainwrecks TV slander on my feed. Good guy with a good heart, and I'll die on that hill." At this point, Train has been on Twitch for more than half a decade, and it's unlikely that he's leaving anytime soon. While he consistently finds himself at the center of some of the biggest controversies the site has ever seen, being one of the figures whose actions actively shape policy decisions on the site, he's still managed to upkeep a pretty loyal audience. He seems to have some pretty ambitious plans for the future, potentially starting his own streaming platform to meet demand for gambling streams, and even bringing back the Scuffed podcast in the latter half of October. Whatever your opinion on his rise to popularity, it seems that he's not going anywhere anytime soon. And hey, for once, it feels nice to make a video about someone whose career isn't headed down the toilet. At least, let's hope not.
I'll release what I got paid since the beginning of my contract. I've been paid $360 million for 16 months of gambling. There you go. There's the information I'll get you off the topic of hating poke.
Wait, is that really?
That's
Everyone's
real,
hating.
yes.
Yo, buy me
It's
a house,
released.
bro.
It's done. 360 million. There you go, dumb fucks.
Yo.
I could buy Hassan, Pokey, and Ludwig all together and sell them and buy them again.
I've been Turkey Tom, thanks for watching, and until next time, leave me alone.
So now the best path for a pro player is adaptation. Adaptation and acceptance, because it's probably not going to go back. You see, I feel like the cat is out of the bag now. Now that casual players know that this can technologically be done in Age of Empires 2, they're probably not going to want to have their new toy being removed anymore. I used this system in Age of Empires 4 auto farm placement, and that's just how it was. I never questioned it. But I did feel like it was really convenient and fun to learn that this mechanic exists. I remember teaching other people about it in guide videos so that everyone could use it, and to remind them that this functionality exists. And people generally really like that change. I think it's being resisted because it had never been part of Age of Empires 2 yet. But I don't think the not having it was instrumental to the success of Age of Empires 2. I think Age of Empires 2 is successful because of a large swathe of different things, including their adherence to history, or at least in a soft way, right? The great voice acting and all the different languages and cultures that are being represented. The depth of strategy and different decisions that can be made. The micromanagement, even with all of its quirks. The extensive management of base building, base allocation, base placement, spacing, walling off, etc. So many different units. So I think it's a big combination of all of those, and ultimately I think there is no big drama going on in the AoE 2 scene, and while I do understand some resistance, I think generally this should be heralded as a positive change. There were other things too in Warcraft 3 that got improved over time. Warcraft 3 released without the ability to see mana bars in the main screen where you see all your units on the field, where your units are walking around. So nowadays I could have 6 shamans, and a couple of wisps come in and they detonate on top of my shamans, and I lose all of my mana. I would now see my health bar like this, and my mana bar, zilch, nothing. You know what you had to do before? Click on Shaman 1, click on Shaman 2, click on Shaman 3, click on Shaman 4, click on Shaman 5, click on Shaman 6. You had to click. I taught myself to click all my own units. I taught myself to click all my own heroes. I taught myself to click the enemy heroes to check all their mana. Nowadays, there are mana bars under the health bar. It just makes sense, actually. Because if you resist mana bars, which is a crucial basic info that every unit has, wouldn't you resist health bars too? Why should you ever see the health bars of any of the units on the screen? Because shouldn't that be a skill expression that you go click all the units to see which one is nearly dead? And you know what? By golly, Warcraft 3 was kind of like that as well. Because initially, we didn't have health bars available all the time. You had to press Alt in order to see the health of your units in Warcraft 3. We were playing like this. And that's me pressing the Alt hotkey. So while you're doing anything else, you're playing with your mouse, you're controlling your heroes, controlling your units, you're building things, and you go to the battle and you're controlling your Kodo Beast and your Raider, but then you're always doing this with your thumb, or you just be holding it while doing other things. That severely impacted everyone's ability to properly micro. Now you could look back at VODs of 2003 and think, well, we weren't as good as I thought we were. But keep in mind, we keep having to press Alt to see the health on all the units. Eventually, Blizzard added a functionality that says, always show health bars. And we stopped needing to buy new keyboards because our Alt key had been broken. You know what I thought about that at first? I didn't like it. I started playing with the new setting because it's a competitive advantage, but I had already learned to use Alt. Now when I pressed Alt by muscle memory, it hid my health bars. Because when you have always health on and you press Alt, it removes it. So I'll be playing and I still have the metronome of my thumb doing this, and I'm literally hiding the health bars all the time. You see, I resisted all of these changes because I wasn't used to it, but now I feel like they're integral part of the game. You know what that probably means? There were more quality of life things that could have been done for Warcraft 3 that I never even thought about, that I would have hated initially, perhaps resisted. But back then, devs didn't listen to big Twitter drama and Reddit drama and then revert. And I still think you have to stand strong in your shoes nowadays, even with all those influences available. And if you are a strong, confident development team that has strong ideas about it, and most of all, good ideas, not bad ideas. We should still push back on bad ideas, right? But I think we should be honest with ourselves to see whether ideas that developers execute really are bad before maybe cooking up a stink. And I'm not saying T90 did that. I'm not saying anyone did that. There's a Reddit thread here that does talk about it, but I think everyone is being super reasonable about it. I think Age of Empires 2 generally has an extremely civilized and respectful community. But I am saying we should think about whether these changes that we initially feel like might not be a good idea are good or bad. In this Reddit thread, on the test server, the devs are testing automatically placing farms by clicking on the TC mill. I think it's a fantastic change, right? And then people talk about it. Hey, this was actually one of my key skills. It's one of the few things I excelled in, placing farms. But anyway, I'm not going to be salty about it. I'm happy for all my not well placing farm fellows, right? So it definitely is going to change a couple of things, but maybe you'll find something else that you're going to be good at. Warcraft 3 has more things that could be done, more quality of life changes that never happened, but might improve the game if it does happen. For instance, Warcraft 3 still does not have an in-game clock of real time to help players learn build order timings. Nowadays, I have 3 major timings. When I look at the very charming day-night cycle and the in-game clock that corresponds in some way to the time passage that has happened so far in the game. At 14:20, during the first day of the day-night cycle, you can start hiring a tavern hero from your altar as your first hero. 14:20. At 1800, nighttime starts and vision will be occluded, and creeps will go to sleep. At 1900, you can first buy Boots of Speed and Staff of Teleportation. And at 2300, the Goblin Shredder becomes available. So these are all really ephemeral in-game timings that don't have a clear correlation and do not tell a new player very easily about when things are going to be coming out. And while I do think it's charming and should stay, day-night cycle is a really cool, charming part of Warcraft 3, I no longer resist an in-game clock because it helps people learn the game better. That's been very helpful for me to learn Age of Empires 4 and StarCraft 2. And while I can't imagine needing it on my initial journey of Warcraft 3, it's only because it wasn't there to begin with. Nowadays, if I want to teach people via coaching and videos on YouTube and or Twitch, I would like to use an in-game clock that is readily available for everyone. But right now, the only services that offer it is if you use the W3 Booster add-on, then you can choose to show a clock. Or if you play ladder via the second place to play ladder, because you've got the original Battle.net server, and then you've got the W3 Champions server, which is a very reputable and very popular and fun place to play Warcraft 3 as well. And that one, since a recent time, very recently, also offers an in-game clock for 1v1 games. And I think it's super helpful, it's hella helpful. But it is not yet being offered by Blizzard themselves, and I think it'd be a great thing to add, even though it lessens skill expression of being aware of the passage of time without such a clock. Additionally, Warcraft 3 still does not enable native hotkey changes for item hotkeys. So one of the primary ways of achieving this is using a Windows application, a third-party script called Auto Hotkey. Back in my day, it wasn't always allowed to use Auto Hotkey for items at tournaments. Some tournaments would allow it, and others would strictly not allow any third-party scripts. Because of this, I never even tried to learn it, and I simply used my item hotkeys via the numpad. Some keyboards don't even have a numpad. How are you going to play Warcraft 3 with hotkeys if you have to move your left keyboard hand all the way over to number 7 and 8 to turn on your health stone and your town portal scroll? You may not even have a numpad key. Yeah, I think Blizzard should be offering that, and that will once again be a loss of skill expression for me, because I can use the numpad and someone else can't. So I have an edge over someone that can't use it because maybe their keyboard doesn't have it, or they think it's too far for their left hand to go there, right? But I still encourage that change. I still welcome it, because I think we also rely on the casual players to be part of a big, vibrant community. And of course, I think it's going to be much more fun and convenient for them to be able to bind their item hotkeys. This is the kind of modern change we should welcome. I feel the same way about the farm allocation, and I still think Age of Empires and Warcraft 3 could have a lot of extra things that could help streamline the game. RTS is a wonderful genre with many different aspects of skill and multitasking and APM and skill expression, and I think it should not become so easy that one gamer will look like he's achieving the exact same thing as another gamer, even though one player is very experienced and the other guy is entirely relying on automation. But I think the gap between that and what we have now is still so far away that I think we can keep looking case-to-case basis whether some changes will actually just be a net positive for the scene. Even if sometimes we will miss the difficulty or the tediousness of some tasks, I think that should be sacrificed at the altar of overall improvement for the scene. Thank you for listening to my TED Talk. If you hated this video, please do not hit the subscribe button. See you next time. Bye. You can never fully utilize the value of a healing salve. There's always some money being lost, and you don't want to wait till they're 1 HP either. So the Grunt is a very useful damage absorber. It's easy to save them. They're beginner friendly, right? It's easier to send a Hertz Grunt home than to be fast enough, especially as an intermediate or lower level player, to send a Footman or a Ghoul home, and in that sense they're forgiving. But they've got some drawbacks as well. At 3 population, with other tier 1 units being 2 population for the most part, except the Huntress, the Grunt does not come out in large numbers. So it is much harder to make surrounds with them. You need 9 population worth of Grunts to have 3 to, together with the Blade, do a surround in open space, north, east, south, west, right? Whereas for Ghouls, you only need 3 Ghouls, which is 6 population, right? So it's not super easy to do surrounds with the Grunts, but I did manage a couple. For example, in the World Cyber Games 2008, 3rd map against Moon on Twisted Meadows near the tavern, we got some Grunt surrounds, and I believe earlier in that series as well. And they're always cool to do Grunt surrounds, because if you do get a surround with them, they're so tanky that it's almost impossible to break out, right? With the damage that's available early game. Not much to be said about Grunts. They're heavy armor, they're weak against magic damage, kiting, slow, they're weak against air, but they're a solid unit. They are staple unit for the Orcish race. And unlike Footmen, which kind of become obsolete as hero levels get too high, Grunts can remain relevant the entire game. They're not uncounterable, they're not OP, they're not super fantastic, but there are definitely reasons to keep making these in a variety of different matchups. They're useful against mountain giants, spellbreakers, raiders. They're good against archers if they can close the distance, which of course you could do with speed scroll. They're good against riflemen entire game long if your opponent is playing a rifleman build. They have a good damage type against medium armor. So I've mentioned all these units that have medium armor where grunts will do bonus damage because of the armor and damage type situation in Warcraft 3. And they will get destroyed by something like Chimera, Druids of the Talon, and you're probably going to stop making them if they have those units. But that's called getting countered. And those units, you don't always go up against them. So I think Grunt should either be tier A or B. It doesn't have a lot of finesse. It can get countered. I'm inclined to just put it at B. Same place where I would put any standard unit. Like, they're not particularly fast. You don't have particularly many, so surrounds are rarer. They don't have any special mechanics. They can't hide like an archer. They can't mine lumber like a ghoul. They can't get almost no damage from piercing like a footman. They are tanky though, so they're very high on B or they're low on A. I'm gonna say tier B. Next up, Headhunter. The Headhunter and the Berserker are two sides of the same coin. And this is the tier 1 variant that will remain so until tier 2. And once you upgrade your Greathold to a Stronghold and then eventually a Fortress, you can upgrade for 75 gold, 175 lumber, the Headhunter to become Berserker. It will transform all current Headhunters to the Berserker form, gaining them 100 extra health and also gaining them the ability to turn on Berserk mode, which gives you 40% more damage taken from all sources, including spell and physical, but you also have more attack speed. I believe it's 50% more attack speed. It's accompanied by a loud troll war cry, oh, something like that. And that means they're doing a lot of damage. The Headhunter is a 2 population, very cheap unit that can be spammed quite a bit from 1 or 2 barrackses, generally. And they're a very flexible unit. They're one of the most stable units of the Orcish race. However, it hasn't always been so. The Headhunter only started to become part of the Orcish army mainstay from 2020 onwards. So what is it that happened in 2020? Well, it was shortly off the back of Reforged, and Headhunters had received a number of important buffs. 100 bonus range, 25 bonus health, and also an increase in the troll regeneration effectiveness. You see, that's an upgrade that affects Headhunters, Berserkers, and Witch Doctors. And Troll Batriders, by the way, which is kind of funny. It gives bonus regeneration to the entire troll race. It's got that troll blood energy that are known across many different fantasy games. And that ability was always kind of okay, but it was given extra oomph in the beginning of Reforged. And you could really start to notice its important effect. Those buffs all together really formed an important bed for the Headhunter to become part of the mainstay of Orcish race. However, it had never been done or possible before because especially their short range had been a major detractor to seeing them into viability. And it was one of my viewers, Save Orcas, who convinced me to try the strategy over and over again, and eventually this would become, even though I was retired as an active pro player, this would become the dominant strategy from 2020 onwards for Orc players to use in all matchups. And not because I conceived of the idea, I, a former World Championship winner, but one of my viewers that doesn't even play the game. He really believed in it and he kept crunching build orders and I kept, trying out his builds and I kept not believing in it. I'm usually relatively skeptical of other people's Warcraft 3 ideas, and I must say with good reason. But this one really worked and I ended up nearly defeating the current best player in the world, Happy, 3-0 score. I was leading 2-0, but I made a mistake in the third game and he ended up actually reverse sweeping me 3-2, but it was all thanks to this strategy and of course an okay implementation of it as well at the time, and the fact that the strat was new. Then the strategy started catching fire all over the world. People from China and Korea started playing it as well, and it became pretty imba for a while, and eventually Headhunter received some nerfs as well by Blizzard in order to take them down a bit. In their current form, Headhunters are an option, which is an amazing place to be in for the Orcish race. If you start playing Warcraft 3 in 2024, you can either make grunts or headhunters or a combination of them from tier onwards. Just make sure you've got the right build order for them, which you can see from any of my videos on my @FollowGrubby YouTube channel. Headhunters are definitely tier A. They do have some counters. Headhunters are not super happy to go up against high-level heroes with Thunderclap, Mountain King, Blizzard from the Archmage. They do pretty good damage against Spellbreakers, but they also take good damage. They're afraid to turn on their Berserk ability when opponent has area of effect spells available because they take amplified damage from it. But if you're better and if you're good, and I feel like it should be like this at high level, you only activate it on some of them instead of the whole group. But most people just do the whole group at the same time. And that is just asking to be murdered on all of your units at the same time. But if you turn it on a couple, you start spamming the opponents in notifications that the Headhunter upgrade has turned on, and some spears are red, signifying that they are in that mode, some aren't. So it becomes more complicated for them to target the right one. And so that's something you can do. Actually, I should group these separately. Headhunters themselves are most effective against human early game. And until you get to the tier 3 upgrade, they kind of struggle to fight anyone. You cannot really easily open Headhunters against Night Elf without getting punished. Headhunters against Orc is somewhat risky, but it is not uncommon. Headhunters against human is very good, and against undead, Headhunter opening is relatively standard, but you can't really commit to almost any fights after the 3 to 4 minute mark. Let's say after the 4 minute mark, because they'll die too easily to a couple of auto attacks from Death Knight, some Rod of Necromancy skeletons, and some coils to finish them off. And then once Dark Ranger or Lich comes out at 5 minute 30, Headhunters must run and hide until at minute 8 or 9 you finish your Berserker training upgrade and they get that bonus health. So I'm gonna put Headhunters at tier B for an important staple unit that can be part of your early creeping plan that has you doing a regular creeping build up, get some levels, get some harass, and then eventually you hide them and you wait till you get the upgrade. Berserkers, significantly better. Can form part of an army for the entire game. They can focus down enemy air, enemy casters, enemy huntresses, and they're just really, really nice. So Berserker A, Headhunter B. Next, Demolisher. The final unit that is produced from the Orc Barracks. This is it's the sibling that never gets invited as the other siblings go out, right? They're all from the barracks, they're all from the same house, but somehow they always end up planning a date to go somewhere when they knew Demolisher isn't available. And it ends up staying at home, alone, sad, dejected, and unused. D for Demolisher, tier D. The Demolisher is a 4 population unit for 220 gold and 60 lumber. At 4 population, you expect to get a lot out of it, but you don't. It is a mechanical unit with about 400 health. The cool thing about Demolisher is it does receive armor upgrades, just like the Mortar team equivalent at human. The Glaive Thrower and the Meat Wagon do not enjoy armor upgrades, so I know what you're thinking. Demolishers 3-3 upgrades, pretty badass, right? Hard to kill? Sadly not. They're very slow. They move glacially. They have a 220 movement speed compared to the Raider that's 350, for instance. So they're 50% slower than a Raider. And while Raider is pretty fast, 220 is very slow. Most heroes come out the gate with somewhere around 300 movement speed. So they are about 25% slower than heroes. That means it's exceedingly easy for any hero to start targeting them and taking them down. And unlike biological units, Demolishers cannot be healed by Healing Ward, Heal Salve, or Healing Wave. And so you must resort to mechanical reparations, which is bringing the peon, who are also slow and vulnerable. So now you've got peons guarding the catapults. When catapults get attacked, you start trying to repair them, but it's not enough usually to save them. Now you've got a Congo line, a very slow-moving caravan of units, and what are you getting out of it actually? Well, Demolisher does have 1200 range, just like the other mechanical long-range siege units, which is cool. It does over 100 damage with an additional upgrade, Burning Oil, unlockable at tier 3, which is a cheap 50 gold, 150 lumber upgrade that completes relatively fast. and it actually deals, and this is not easy information to find, but I tested it before, it deals a total of 18 damage. So burning oil creates a burning area upon impact of the projectile. The oil does 6,633 damage, I believe every half second, in an area around the target. So 6,633, total 18 damage. Another cool thing about mechanical long-range units like this and the glaive thrower and the meat wagon is that when you attack ground on a guard tower, so you use the attack ground command, they do damage 100% to the tower, just like they would if you right-click a tower. But they also do splash damage around the guard tower, which also ends up hurting the peasants around it a bit for like 10 or 20 damage. Whereas if you don't attack ground on the tower, it only hits the tower with no splash. And a funny story about that is back in 2005 and even beyond it, usually I've been known to be quite good against tower rushes and at tower rushes compared to most of the other orc players. And that's because European players are really cheesy, right? Sometimes European players didn't have the same mechanical prowess as the Asian players, the South Korean and the Chinese players. So you're forced to do more strategizing. I'd say that's partially true for me too sometimes. You're doing more strategy thinking. There's also, on average, and I know I might be stereotyping a bit here, but forgive me because I think I see those trends in the game. There's more dogmatic thinking, perhaps because of education style in South Korea or China, and there's more sometimes free thinking in Europe because there's more freedom to develop yourself. Like there's more like independence valued at school and everything, and so people have like more crazy ideas, but are also slightly less disciplined. I know this is super potentially stereotypical, but you hear that a lot. You kind of see it in the education system, and you see it in the play style. So generally, you've got better execution in South Korea, China. In Europe, got a bit more wild ideas. So it happened once that the one of the Asian players said that they noticed that my catapults were more effective than theirs. Like mine was doing more splash damage, and they didn't know why. And I guess because I felt a little complimented, I ended up telling them the secret. When actually you should keep those secrets for yourself, right? It's a competition. But I was flattered, it worked. So anyway, that's the secret of Demolisher. But as much as I gas them up, they suck. They die too easily. The projectile is slow moving, so it can be dodged. So even though supposedly you could use catapults to kill sorceresses, dryads, and priests, those can move, and then they won't do nearly as much damage as the main damage promised. So the Demolisher's damage a little bit is a lie, just like Blizzard's reforged promises. And Blizzard would also be in tier D if I made that tier list right now for game developers, whereas I used to put them, of course, in tier S. Next up, Raiders. Raiders are the better siege unit in the Orcish race. They are amazing. Huh? Raiders, I'm not even going to beat around the bush. Raider is the best Orcish unit, I think. Right? I'm going to put him over Peon. And I even think there might be a case to look at how Raiders might be one of the best units in the game. It is very possible that Raiders might be the best unit in the game. Let's look at what they are. They cost 180 gold, and they are 3 population. They have 600 health, maybe 23 to 27 siege damage. Maybe my editor will show the stats as I talk about it so you can see. They have siege damage, which is bonus damage on unarmored and fortified. And so when you look at them, and they can get the pillage upgrade, just like the peon and the grunt. And pillage upgrade, we'll talk about that after I finish talking about the raider, because pillage mechanics are not very well known to a lot of people. But basically, when you look at the face of it, what the raider is, the name, the damage type, and his speed of 350, and the fact that he has an ensnare, which can stop a worker from repairing, it looks like they are the original objective completers. The only objective in Warcraft 3 that stands above all others is to destroy all enemy buildings. That leads to technical elimination. Though in the multiplayer meta of Warcraft 3 playing, it is very typical for players that lose the hope to win to call GG, good game, and leave the game. This is considered normal sportsmanship. It's only when someone pissed you off by, insulting you or something that you may make a lot of buildings in secret places to hide away and to make it cost as much time as possible for your opponent. But usually people call GG and leave, or just leave, right? And Raider completes the objective of killing buildings, and it looks like that's his role, but he is so much more. You see, the key skill for Raider isn't pillage or the fact that he has siege damage. He does not particularly win fights. His toolkit is so flexible. So Raiders are very fast, 350. The big one is Ensnare. Ensnare is a 25 gold, 75 lumber upgrade that allows the Raider on a cooldown to throw a net that roots a hero or a unit. This cooldown used to be 12 seconds. Back in 2010 and the years preceding it, Ensnare was on a 12-second cooldown. Guess the duration, 12 seconds. So there is the throwing the ensnare animation and the traveling projectile, but from the look of it, it looks like one Raider can permanently root one enemy unit in place. It didn't quite work out that way because of the animation and stuff, but let's say if you have 7 units, you could root 6 enemy units forever if you have 7 Raiders, because you can go for like the overlap, and you could almost permanently root 1 unit with 1 Raider. That's crazy. Raider Ensnare gives so much battle control. Think of the things you can do with Ensnare, rooting enemy heroes and units. If the enemy has a high level demon hunter with mana